Do you have evidence for evolution? Bring it. Join this stream and share your evidence, because I'm always hearing about how the evidence for evolution is so overwhelming. There's just so much of it. But what I'm discovering is that evolution has a big evidence problem. And so if you think you have evidence for evolution, I would love to hear your evidence. I'm going to start out by sharing some evidence against evolution. And anyone is welcome to come on and challenge what I'm presenting after I've presented it. But this is my evidence against evolution today. This is a chart showing metabolic pathways. And when you look at this chart, this is just showing the metabolic pathways involved in living cells. And when I look at this, to me, it is clear that what is happening in living cells has been engineered. This is the work of an engineer. This is an integrated system. These processes require enzymes and require processes that have steps in them in order to make the whole process happen. You can't have a missing step. And so, but hey, don't take my word for it that this looks like the work of an engineer. Let's hear from a scientist who actually believes in evolution. What does he say about this? And he actually put this metabolic pathways chart in his book. This is from a book called Biochemical Evolution by Dr. Athol Cornish-Bowden. And this is what he says, and he's actually supplied the same chart that I've put up here. And he says this: suffice it to say that in metabolic regulation, like any other biological adaptation, it has arrived at a state that looks as if it had been consciously planned by an engineer. It looks like it has been consciously planned by an engineer. That's coming from a scientist who still believes in evolution. He says it again in another place. He says the living cell is the product of many millions of years of evolution. And that, even if not strictly a designed system, it shows all the characteristics of a designed system. So everything within the cell looks like it has been deliberately designed. Now, isn't it strange how no matter what, it seems like all of these evolutionists constantly use language of design and active verbs that nature is selecting, nature has constructed, they use very active and teleological language. Now, what does Dr. Cornish-Bowden say about that? Because he does say something about that. And he says this. He says, it is quite difficult in this field to avoid anthropomorphic or teleological language that implies the existence of a conscious designer. And the circumlocutions needed to avoid such language are not worthwhile, as long as everyone realizes that the long-term effect of natural selection is design without a designer. So he admits, look, we can't even use, it's so difficult to try to avoid this language of design. But what I want you to keep in mind is that this is design without a designer. Why do we need to take out the designer? To me, when I see a design, I know there is a designer. I'm not going to explain away the designer and insist that something came about by natural processes when it's obvious that it didn't come about by natural processes. Look what he says here about the metabolism. Given the apparent completeness and perfection of modern metabolism, we may fear that there is no hope of deducing how it evolved to its present state if all traces of its more primitive states have disappeared. However, just as mitochondrial genetic codes yield some clues as to how the universal code may have evolved, so we may hope that some organisms preserve some traces of more primitive types of metabolism. So what he's saying is, look, the metabolism that we see now is so perfect. If we, we can only hope that somehow there will be some organism that we'll find that will have a primitive metabolism that we can study. But so far, nope, haven't found anything like that. It's just a hope and a prayer that he's going to find an organism that he could study with a more simple and incomplete and imperfect metabolism. Well, this is my evidence against evolution today. Anybody is welcome to come on and challenge this. The link is there in the chat. It's also in the description of this video. And if you want to share more evidence against evolution, you can come on and share more evidence against evolution. So whether you're sharing evidence for evolution or against evolution, you're welcome to join me. And I will welcome now Junior Silva. Thanks for joining. Let me remove this so I can see you. There we go.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Yes, thanks for having me. So yeah, I guess I'll just chill out for a bit here, and yeah, if you want, I can go over some of the stuff we talked about.
Yes, please. You were, I think, in the quote I just mentioned, it mentioned mitochondria, and I think you had something you wanted to say about mitochondrial DNA or mitochondria.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. After you sent me that paper you just read there, because that looked quite interesting as well. But yeah, so obviously I'm not like the most well versed, in this area or anything. But obviously, I'm just taking what the expert have, found, and yeah, that's what I'm doing. So don't evolutionists, don't take this on me. I'm just showing the paper. I'm just showing what they found. That's what I'm doing. You guys can look this paper yourself. Now, I don't actually know how to present my screen. I think I press on the present plus icon.
Yeah, there should be a little computer screen icon down there. You can press on that. And while you're trying to do that, I will say hello to Prairie Christian Outreach. The language of evolution is largely theological. Yes, it's extremely theological, because really that is what this is, the idea of life coming about and diversifying by natural processes. That is a worldview idea. That is actually a religious view, because it's not a view. It's a view about reality, the way that things are, and it is not a scientific view. So, okay. I think, okay, there you go.
Oh, so is he showing now?
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll just go through this real quick. Haven't looked into too much detail, but again, anyone can look into detail if they want. Yeah, so basically, what is it? January 27, 2023, paper code quantifying constraint in the human mitochondria genome. Lots of important names here. So in here, they looked at 56,434 genomes. That's a lot. That definitely represents quite well the populations. And it's rare to have a study that is like this long here. But yeah, lots of genomes. And they found, after studying, I'm showing the paper somewhere, they say that they've looked at multiple haplogroups as well. I believe that's what Rob Carter said anyway in his video. I can link that video as well if people want to see. Anyway, so this is quite interesting right here. Let me just. So that's both of the strands of the mitochondria ring. You got the light and the heavy strand, and they found that the C to T mutation happens way more often than anything else on the heavy strand. And then on the light strand, you have the T to C mutation happen way more than anything else. It literally, this is not random. You can see this is not random. Everything else is basically what 0.1. You know what I mean? It doesn't even go to 1%. And these two mutations happens way often in that specific strand. That's not random. Evolution says that anything goes in the genome. Nope, that's not how it works. We now know that it follows a very specific pattern, and we can predict that pattern. However, we still have lots of C's in the heavy strand, and we still have lots of people can check the genome online. I'm sure there's lots of references that people can check online to see the reference for the mitochondria. So we still got a lot of C's in the heavy strand. We still got a lot of T's in the light strand. How comes? Given millions of years, all the C's should have been changed to T's by now, and the same goes for the C's, same to T's. I really don't see a good explanation of how evolution is gonna. Well, are they gonna say that? Oh, it just so happens the mutations were way slow in the past. Nah, come on, that's really silly. If someone tries to argue about that, and they also found that stop gain mutations basically 0%. Missense mutations 0.25 or about that, and synonymous mutations like 1%. These are just different types of mutations. Basically, one of the mutations allows for the codons to be changed so they doesn't damage the protein, and the other type of mutation doesn't allow any change in the codon, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but it's something along those lines. But anyway, you can see the heavily constrained. The mitochondria does not allow nearly any missense to happen, and definitely doesn't allow any stop gain to happen at all. So this is also against evolution. So yeah, there you go, missense. This is what this diagonal line is what they expect. So yeah, sure, synonymous mutation they expect. That's fine. That happens more often. But missense mutations way off what evolution expects, and stop gain, well, completely just yeah. But anyway, so that's just to show that you can't just have the mitochondria mutate freely like that. In fact, they also found that only 50% of the mitochondria can mutate. I'm not sure what that would be. Someone would have to look for this, but that's what Rob said in the video about this paper. So yeah, can't just mutate the mitochondria as how you wish. That's just an evolutionist dream. But no, that doesn't happen because you kill the organism. You easily kill the organism for any change in the mitochondria. So yeah, that completely puts a stop to evolution. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Really, I guess I can stop now.
Okay, so now is the significance of this, are you saying those mutations that are happening, are they intentionally done by like the gene regulatory networks or something when they're trying to accomplish something? Like, what is the cause of, do we know what the cause of those particular changes are?
Um, you mean if they're doing something on purpose to these genomes? Is that what?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like, what I mean is, yeah, I'm not understanding the full significance of those certain spots being mutated while the other not being mutated.
Oh, yeah. So basically, that's just they just took lots of mitochondria. They just took the sample for 56,000 people across the world, and that's all they found. So they didn't change anything. That's literally what they found after collecting that much mitochondria. So that shows us that the mitochondria, first, number one, it follows a very specific mutation pattern, and you saw that pattern there with the T to T mutation at a specific
Mm-hmm.
strand, only on the heavy strand, and the T to C mutation happens way more often, but only on the light strand of the mitochondria. This is very specific. This is not what evolution expects. Like, oh, anything goes, any mutation, any position, any strand. No. It's it's predictable. Shouldn't be predictable in evolution. But the thing is, there's still C's in the heavy strand, and there's still T's in the light strands. that shouldn't be the case given millions of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, Wesley. Glad you could
Hi.
join us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Finally get on.
Oh, is that somebody's mic? Somebody's blowing into the mic.
Oh.
Junior, can I remove this, or are we done with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can remove.
Okay. How you doing, Wesley?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good. I've really enjoyed your comments on my channel. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to what Junior Silva is saying here. The mutations, they're coming from things like oxidization and radiation from the sun. That's why they're non-random. And the fact that these... Sorry, is that my mic?
Junior, is that your mic? I'm going to mute you for a minute and see.
Oh, is that my mic? Oh, sorry.
I don't know. Hold on. Okay.
Is that just like blowing on it or something?
Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, like these are the natural chemical processes that we'd expect if the basic laws of thermodynamics are happening in the genome. And this is sort of one of the reasons why people like Rob Carter are pointing to, like, look at, this is demonstrable. Genetic entropy is demonstrable. And because, you know, chemical processes are occurring in the genome, it suggests that, you know, life is not immune to thermodynamics. Basically, that's what the argument is.
Cool. That's really awesome. Well, I'm going to have to read that paper. That looks great. And so was that what we would expect? So, I mean, what is the thing that would make the, like, reactions, you know, from, okay, you know, damage from the sun and things like that cause those specific mutations? And like not cause some the mutations in the other areas?
It's just comes down to chemical reactions. Kinds of alpha radiation interact with certain nucleotide bases differently, and so they cause them to basically screw up when they're copying. And yeah, that's pretty much.
Cool. Okay. Did you have something that you wanted to share? On any topic related to this, or, you know, any topic related to evolution?
I'm just here for the conversation.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool.
To participate.
Well, Prairie Christian, and let me unmute Junior in case he wants to say something. But Junior, if you could keep your mic muted when you're not talking, because we're getting like blowing into the mic. But Prairie Christian says, good point. Given neutral mutations and genetic entropy, can natural selection actually drive evolution?
Well, so no one believes that natural selection is driving evolution on either side. Natural selection is removing material. It's taking things out of the equation. It's by killing off parts of the population that have certain good or bad things. And so mutation is what's going to drive evolution in their model.
Sorry. Sorry. What's your name again?
Wesley.
Oh, Wesley. Okay. And I believe you are evolutionist, right?
No.
Oh, you know?
No.
Yeah, we're all creationists here right now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Young Earth.
But because I was gonna add to the when you said about the chemical things. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not the best expert on this, but obviously there's constraints and the mutations are predictable. So even giving, you know, you can say, oh, it's a chemical reaction. You know, you can say these things, but still, one one would have to demonstrate why those things that the person says actually causes the C to T mutation to happen so much often than anything else. Uh, because obviously, sure, you can say chemical reactions and such, but and by the way, this is not to, obviously I'm not here to try to debate with you. We're on the same page on this. But if an evolutionist were to say chemical reaction, I would respond like this, because someone can't just say, oh, it's a chemical reaction. They have to demonstrate that actually causes that specific type of mutation. And also, people live in different parts of the world. There's, cold places, hot places, all types of environments. And how comes we collected 56,000 from all over the world, and still the C to T mutation only in the heavy strand, and the T to C, whatever it was, on the light strand. So chemical reaction doesn't quite answer how specific this is. Sorry, again, this is not to debate with you.
Mhm.
We're on the page. This is just if evolutionists were to say chemical reactions, basically.
Right. Is part of your argument that we should not expect to have such a balance of the nucleotide bases, because over millions of years we should expect like an abundance of G's?
Oh yes, and all the mutations haven't changed yet. Since it's predictable, since C to T is predictable, them given millions of years, yeah, it should literally be all the C to T's by now. Sure, look, you can have reversal mutations happen sometime. That's fine, but still, most should be T's by now. Even given reversed mutations, By the way, reverse mutations are so rare anyway. Reversal mutations are so rare anyway.
Oh, okay. I see your point. So, okay, now I'm getting it. So you're saying basically like, because of the time that has spent, and we know how this mutates, like it mutates in a pattern, that like it should have all mutated by now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And if you watch Rob's video, he says the same thing, and he obviously he's a very well versed geneticist in this area, So I'm just saying what he said.
Yeah, I think what me and Wesley are trying to do is trying to understand the argument, because I haven't read the paper. So I don't know what the argument is here. Like I'm not fully sure that I understand the significance of the charts that you were showing in related to evolution. So that's all I think we're trying to do.
Yeah, and it's really great because you also show, like you saw, like the stop gains, the synonymous, non-synonymous mutation, it all only happens. They only saw these mutations in a very small percentage of those 56,000. That means the mitochondria doesn't allow stop gain. That means the mitochondria doesn't allow, or nearly doesn't allow, the non-synonymous mutations. And the synonymous mutation, yeah, it allows a few more. That's fine. But yeah, that's completely against evolution, because if you can't have those other types of mutations, you can't change proteins into other proteins, and so on and so forth. I mean, we as creationists, we already know this. We already know that mutations only kills, not changes a species to another. But this is just more proof. When you read, Rebekah, you're gonna see. You're gonna understand the paper.
Yes, thank you. And if you notice, I'm still on my creationist high, because no one is joining to share any evidence for evolution. And every book that I read about evolution gives me more evidence against evolution. So, I'm reading books that are written by people who believe in evolution, and even without trying, they're showing me the evidence against their theory. So it's really just makes a creationist feel like there's no evidence out there. And if there is some, why don't you bring it? Why is it that I'm only on here with two other creationists? Aren't there any evolutionists with the guts to get on here and share your evidence? Get some guts and come on here. Come on, let's go. Show me your evidence. Don't leave me in this creationist high where I think that evolution has been repeated over and over and over again.
I don't know, Rebekah. I have some bad news for you. If you think talking to evolutionists is going to get you off that creationist high, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
in
sorry,
your
go on.
experience, is there anything that you would say would count on the evolution side as evidence?
In what domain?
Oh, any one
I
of
would
your
really
choosing.
struggle.
Any one of
I-
your choosing.
I would really struggle with that because I can't think. I mean,
Okay,
Yeah,
so
go on, go.
we did have someone come on. I will have to mention it. We did have several people come on. Okay, and two of them shared evidence against young Earth creation. Dr. Howard, and Jackson. So Jackson Rowe came on and shared evidence, but they were more sharing evidence from the fossil record that was against young Earth creation, not sharing evidence for evolution. And the fossil record, as we know, is no friend to evolution. But there was one person, Grayson, who came on and shared two things for evolution that I think gave him points. So he said that specifically the predictions of these transitional forms and finding a, bird that was sort of had some features that could be dinosaur-like or, more reptile-like, and finding that in the fossil record. And I'm talking about Archaeopteryx. And then he also mentioned the prediction that we would find a, sort of fish amphibian sort of mix. And then we found Tiktaalik, which has some features that could be, considered a transitional form. So I gave him the points on that. And so he's the only evolutionist that has actually brought what I consider to be evidence that would be for evolution. And those I'd say are still very weak points. So, I mean, if there's just this overwhelming evidence for evolution that I'm told about so often, why can't anyone come on here and share it?
Can I just share my screen real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so it's doing now, yeah. Yeah, so I have this saved. Right here. I'm just gonna open. Yeah, so people can look if they want to, but these are very repeatable evolutionists saying these things, So this George Simons, these are all like paleontologists. By the way, they're evolutionists. You can look at these if you want. So 85 years after basically Darwin said that we're going to predict that we're going to find transitioners. This is 85 years later. And yeah, you can read it. This regular absence of transitional form is not confined to mammals, but is an almost universal phenomenon, as has long been noticed by paleontologists. And you can read this. Same thing here. What is evolution? 2001. 142 years later, given the fact of, see how they need to write like this, otherwise it's not going to get published. Given the fact of evolution, one would expect the fossils to document a gradual steady change from ancestral forms to the descendant, but this is not what the paleontologists find. Instead, he or she finds gaps in just about every phyletic series. One of the most difficult problems in evolution of paleontology has been the abrupt appearance of the major animal groups. Same thing here. 120 years later, no fossils, So it just goes on and on. I have so many quotes from these paleontologists. You can take out now, Rebekah, my screen.
Okay.
So
yeah.
They can go on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so they can say all they want.
No, go ahead.
We have transitionals. Oh, look, what's the name of that one? Atheism, something like that, right? The bird one. We have that one, and that one, and that one.
Like Archaeopteryx.
Yeah, but but you literally, all of these paleontologists that are actually working on the field and for so many years, they saying there's no transitioners. So no, you don't have. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so no external gods. And by the way, if you have evidence for evolution and you put it in the chat, I will try to get to that as well. So you don't necessarily have to come on here and share your evidence for evolution. But if you do join and share your evidence for evolution, I promise I am going to be nice to you. No one is, well, I hope no one else will be mean to you. Look, it's a civil conversation, okay? So it's not trying to beat anyone up. We actually want to hear from people who have evidence to present. So no external god says the fossil record completely and entirely demonstrates evolution and common ancestry. This
literally after I just showed those paleontologists
right.
saying that.
Well,
okay, sure.
He may have written this before you wrote that. I'm not sure if he wrote that before or after, but no external gods. I will say that this is not true. It does not demonstrate evolution. In fact, we should have millions of transitional forms. We should have millions of more transitional forms than the fully complete species in their categories as we see them today. We should see something much different looking at the fossil record if we've been evolving over millions of years. So it is not true that the fossil record is a big problem for evolution. And let's see if there's anybody else. And by the way, he also said disproving evolution doesn't prove the Bible. You guys get that, right? Yes, I completely get that. And I am not trying on this channel to show you which God is the correct God to believe in. What I'm trying to do is break people from this deception that life came about by natural processes and that no designer was needed. I trust that the true God will open your eyes to see who he really is, or she, or whoever this, or them, okay? Whoever this designer might be, I trust that designer to open your eyes. But yes, I'm a Christian and I believe that that God is true, but I believe that the God of the Bible is the revelation of God. But I believe that by faith. Okay, so I am not trying to scientifically demonstrate that that is true. Do you guys want to say anything about that?
And is also worth pointing that it's the only one, really. It's the only one that is based on actual observable, even repeatable evidence. Christianity is the only one. I'll challenge any evolutionist otherwise. Christianity really is the only demonstrable, evidence-based truth, which means what we're following is just the truth. We can literally be dogmatic about it because the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, sure, I understand, we want to be, scientific about it and nice about it and say, okay, it's faith-based. But really, when you break it down, it's very, very evidence-based. What's not evidence-based is evolution. I can tell you that. And can I share my screen, or am I sharing too many times?
No, you're fine if you have something to share, but your screen is, I don't see anything on your screen right now. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so just miss.
Okay.
Where is...
Well, while you're looking for that, let me respond to this. No external says, God says, I'm not trying to disprove science, but all of evolution is wrong. Is this a joke? Unfortunately, no external gods. This religious idea, this idea about life coming about and developing by natural processes, is being passed off as science, and it was a scientific hypothesis, but our scientific observations have demonstrated that it's false. So that is, I think if you take into account what our scientific observations have actually shown, then you will not believe in evolution. Okay. Okay, Flo Dreas says it's not a religious idea, that's just poisoning the well. Okay, if it's not, then I would like to see some scientific evidence. So please show me your scientific evidence. I'm going to remove your screen while you're looking for it.
Oh no,
Junior.
I found already. But if you want to keep reading the comments, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't intend to poison the well. I'm trying to, but if that is bothering you, then I can keep that idea out of the conversation and just say, please show me the scientific evidence that supports evolution. Thank you. Okay.
So
Yeah,
so yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Junior.
Actually, a couple
Wait.
points for that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, so
go
no,
ahead.
go
ahead.
on.
Yeah.
One, the idea that something being religious would be derogatory or poisoning the well is poisoning the well. Number two, science. What is science? It's seeking knowledge. It's looking at the empirical world. It's using rationality. It's making predictions. You need to point to where evolution is doing this. Yeah, so.
Thank you. And Junior, I saw a 60-minute video on your thing. Is that what you're gonna play? Because I can't play that would probably be copyrighted material.
No, it's a picture. I'm gonna show 3 pictures.
Yeah. Oh yes, I've seen this. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You've seen this. You've seen this.
Oh yes, I think it's Jack Horner on the side of the cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, they found a T-Rex, right? That's the one you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, going back to the point that the Bible is evidence-based, which I think every sane person should follow something that's evidence-based, says that there was a global flood. Okay, there was a global flood. Is there evidence for a global flood? Not only there's so much evidence, it's crazy, but this is one of them. This T-Rex, complete T-Rex, by the way, complete T-Rex skeleton, perfectly preserved, hasn't gone through metamorphosis or anything like that, because I agree that metamorphosis on the rocks can damage the fossils so that the fossils look kind of squishy. You know what I mean? Metamorphosis is basically when you heat up rocks so that rocks reach a melting point. It can damage the fossils and even destroy the fossils. This fossil, not only they found a complete T-Rex, adult T-Rex, but it was quite above sea level. You can tell from the picture, it's quite above sea level already. And above the T-Rex, there's 50 feet of mud. How do you try to explain that? Like what buried this T-Rex? And remember, it had to be quickly because fossils only form quickly. So now we have a T-Rex that was obviously catastrophically killed, because that's why we have the fossil. Above sea level, quite a few meters above sea level, and also 50 meters of mud above it. Like, that's insane. You can see on the background of this picture, that's probably all mud as well, all the hills that you see on the background, because they kind of on the same level, right? So that probably means that the waters of the flood was probably at the same size, covering this whole area, and then it all eroded after. That's why it looks like that today. And yeah, it's sedimentary rock, mud, so yeah, water can create this type of thing. Asteroid, I don't think so. Asteroid is never going to create something like this. First of all, the location that this is located at is on the middle of America. So if you have a supposed asteroid hitting, the Chicxulub asteroid or whatever, right, that hit Mexico, or it doesn't matter where it hits, to be honest, it's not going to create this. It's not going to bury T-Rex like in this picture, because when an asteroid hits, sure, it creates a tsunami. Sure, okay, fine. But the wave of the tsunami loses power of distance, and it only happens once. There's no way a tsunami from an asteroid is going to have time to deposit all this mud, concentrate all this mud. You know what I mean? No, it's impossible. It's impossible. So this is evidence that something catastrophic involving water happened. Look at that. That's where the T-Rex was found, and that's 50 feet of mud above it. No, you're not going to have a silly asteroid doing this. The asteroid theory is so bad, but it's so bad that there's evolutionists leaving the asteroid behind. That's how bad it is. They're not believing anymore. And once again, that's where the T-Rex was found, and 50 feet of mud. And you can see the layers are flat, which is very consistent with rapid water deposition as well, the flat layers. So yeah, you can stop now, Rebekah.
Thank you. That was really awesome. Great point about the difficulty of preserving fossils, and then you imagine those kind of sediments burying a T-Rex. Now, Flodreus says, do endogenous retroviruses. So I guess this is in response to, do endogenous retroviruses support the idea of evolution? And I hear often that they do, but there's a lot of issues with the endogenous retroviruses. The first thing is the name, because what we found, why do we call them endogenous retroviruses? All these are stretches of code, stretches of DNA. And yes, those stretches of DNA have the same code as certain viruses that we see. Okay, so they look similar. But does that mean that they came into the DNA and got preserved there and got passed on in the germline and were able to, become a permanent feature of the DNA? That we don't know. And there are other ideas. First of all, we know that some of those endogenous retroviruses, some of them actually protect us against viruses. So it would seem that having the same type of code as a virus may be part of what makes it effective at fighting viruses. They have other functions. Anyway, the main point is that we actually don't know the source of those. But when people say that's evidence for evolution, they're usually say because we have the same patterns that, basically somebody, like what they would say are on the ancestral tree, we would find the same patterns, and it would be unlikely that an endogenous retrovirus would get put in exactly the same place if those organisms didn't have a common ancestor. But that all assumes that the idea that the endogenous retroviruses were viruses that entered the genome. And so it's all part of an assumption. So right now, I don't believe that endogenous retroviruses are good evidence for evolution. Now, if someone brought me something specific related to that, I haven't fully explored everything possible with, understanding that topic. So there's still somebody who could possibly bring evidence that I might find compelling for endogenous retroviruses being good evidence for evolution. I don't know. So, no external God says, I know abiogenesis occurred, but I don't have to prove it in order for your God not to win by default. Guys, this is pitiful. Well, how do you know that it occurred? You're assuming that it occurred by natural processes in spite of our scientific observations that so far we have not seen any ability for chemicals to become life, not even close. So you're assuming that happened. So it's fine if you believe that, but you're believing something that's actually against our scientific observations. So you are actually being anti-scientific in holding a belief that life came about by natural processes.
Exactly. Well said.
What's that?
Oh, no, I just said exactly. Well said.
Thank you. Okay. Now, Flodrea says chemicals can't become life. What are your cells made of? Well, our cells are made of chemicals, but can those chemicals come together by natural processes? That's the real question. So, in all of our scientific observations, every scientific observation that we have about chemicals and their relationship to life is that chemicals do not want to make life. They go in the opposite direction. So we have no possible pathway right now for chemicals to make life. So that is just the reality of our scientific observations.
Yeah. And the chemicals by itself doesn't do anything. It's just chemicals. It just behaves by the laws of nature, really. That's what chemicals do. Now, taking chemicals and assigning information to it so that they know what to do, that's a completely different thing. And that's exactly what we see by the millions all having to work at the same time in the cell.
Yes. And no external God says, we are sacks of salt water. This is embarrassing. Okay. Wow. Now, this is something that really concerns me. The lack of awe that people have about reality, because we are so much more than a sack of salt water. Okay. A sack of salt water cannot think. A sack of salt water cannot talk. A sack of salt water cannot digest food. A sack of salt water cannot breathe and have every cell in its body nourished by the oxygen that's coming in and all the nutrients that are getting to the cells. And so without which we would die in a matter of minutes. So it's very strange that these incredibly complex integrated systems, more fantastic than anything human intelligence has ever built. We've never even built anything as amazing as a human body. Okay. So to think that something that we can't even replicate, okay, we can't even get close to building something as fantastic as a human body. Think about the robots we've tried to build. Look, we can make some robots that are capable of amazing things, but to be as fantastic as a human being, we're so far from being able to do that with all of our intelligence working together. So to say that, this is really sad, we're just sacks of water, I feel like you've gone away from reality. And I hope that you can come back, because you are so much more than a sack of water.
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, because evolutionists, they love to say, what are the chances of this? And you know what I mean? So I would like to throw another, what are the chances of this in here as well. Basically, anyone can search this up. Anyone can look this up. And the Earth is the only planet that we found so far, out of all the planets in the solar system, all the moons of all the planets and so on, that has plate tectonics. Interesting, very interesting. Even moons that has volcanic activity on it, you will not see them broken up like an eggshell. You will not see that. You're gonna see a perfect sphere. Sure, it's gonna have a few scratches here and there, but broken like the Earth is, nothing. Only the Earth is broken like this. Very interesting. So life just happened to have a reason naturally on the Earth. Water, all perfect. All the ecosystem just happened to happen naturally, and also just happened to be the only planet that is broken like eggshell. Very interesting. It almost feels like our planet is special, and it was judged by the Creator in the past.
Yes. And you're right. And so Flo Drea says, this is just personal incredulity. I hear this accusation a lot, but it's very strange, because there are some things that we should be incredulous about. Now, if someone told me that, they saw on the news that a pig suddenly sprouted wings and flew to the moon, and we have pictures of that pig on the moon, I would be incredulous. I would have personal incredulity about that, because I'm aware of the capabilities of pigs, and it would take a lot for me to believe that happened, right? So I think I have a good reason for personal incredulity if someone told me that a pig sprouted wings and flew to the moon. And in the same way, I think actually I should be even more incredulous about life coming about by natural processes, because it would be harder for life to come about by natural processes than for a pig to sprout wings and fly to the moon. So I really wish people would stop using this personal incredulity and think about what you're actually saying. Are you saying there's nothing that we should be incredulous about? Should I believe everything that I'm told? Should I believe no matter what, no matter how much it disagrees with our scientific observations, should I still believe it? Or is there any level in which it would be acceptable to you for me to be incredulous? So, yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, if you could after later on show the graph that Grayson showed, that apparently is like a proof of evolution, something to do with the order that they found on the layer, something like that, right?
Oh, the metamorphosis?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that. I don't like to try to go hunting for stuff while I'm on whatever I don't have prepared. I usually don't try to pull it up because it'll take a while. If you want to try to pull it up, you can. It's from a paper called like The Evolution of Metamorphosis or something like that. And actually, that paper also gave me great evidence against evolution, which I believe I presented that in a previous video. But now, this is interesting. No external God says education leads to atheism, and no education ends in theism every time. Well, there's quite a lot of very educated theists, so I don't think that's true. But I will admit this. I do think that Western education, teaching and specifically teaching about evolution, is leading people away from the evidence that the Creator has given all of us for his existence, and that is what he's made. So that is why I'm passionate about speaking against evolution and showing the scientific evidence against evolution, because I do think many people are unnecessarily becoming atheists. Look, if somebody wants to be an atheist, like if you don't like God, and no matter what, you're not going to like God, and you don't want anything to do with any idea of God, I don't want to take your evolution away from you. You need that as your comfort blanket to help you sleep at night. But there are lots of people that want to believe in God, that would like to believe that there is a loving God who has a plan for us and that there's an afterlife. But they are blocked from believing that because they have bought into the idea that has been taught them in school systems that all of this came about by natural processes. So that's why I'm passionate about sharing about this. That is my motivation. And so, otherwise I would just take what I've learned and go live my life and enjoy my life. But it's because I care about those people that I'm doing this channel. So, sorry, that was not a related.
I
Go
found
ahead.
the thing, but no, sorry, you can go ahead. I found the the graph when you're ready for me to show real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So, are you seeing the graph?
Yep.
So, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but apparently each one of these numbers, the lower it goes, represents the oldest layers, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And basically, I think his argument was that the more upwards we go in the layers, we actually see the metamorphic changes, right? Is that what his argument was?
Yes, because he's saying, look, we see basically this trend where the lowest insects don't go through metamorphosis. The ones that are a little bit higher up go to, like, they have like a partial metamorphosis, and then you have complete metamorphosis.
Oh, right. So the lowest layers basically saying that those creatures don't go through metamorph. Okay, I see.
But see, the reason I don't accept that as evidence of evolution is that if it were the opposite direction, then, like, what I mean is, if it showed the creatures with most like with the full metamorphosis in the lowest, and then it showed the opposite, where like the ones that don't have metamorphosis are in the higher layers, then the evolutionists would just say, oh, see, they evolved to not need metamorphosis, so they streamlined their process. So
Yeah,
whatever you see, you can make an evolutionary story for it. So
Yeah,
for me, I don't accept that. If the story can go either way, then it's not good evidence for evolution.
exactly, because with evolution, we know that they, historically speaking, they always take the fossils that is not convenient for them out of the fossil record, out of the layers. They only present what's convenient for them. And this is something that I can email you after as well. There's a really good creationist who's been traveling the world speaking with evolutionists, and basically, yeah, he found that the geologic column, the evolutionists, they don't include everything. They only include what's convenient for the theory. So yes, when you actually look into it properly, you find that you're gonna find that in every single layer we find modern creatures of today. So, but they don't publish these things. They only publish the creatures. They select them that is convenient for evolution. So one problem I see right straight away with this paper, with this graph, that they are basically not showing you the full picture. I'm pretty sure that they are definitely not showing the full picture here. In the bottom layers, I'm sure there is other creatures that metamorphoses. You know what I mean? And it's all mixed, basically all mixed, but they don't show these things. Historically, evolution has this bad history of hiding, which is very unscientific, unfortunately, very dogmatic, like a religion. So I would not have my bets off. Basically, I wouldn't doubt anything that they're doing the same thing with this paper. Also, even if you have these transitioners found in this manner, I mean, I don't see how. Basically, why would you assume that the creatures below don't have any metamorphosis? Do you actually know this for sure, or are you just assuming that those creatures? Also, are you assuming those creatures are related, in any shape or manner, that these creatures are related to say that they evolved into the other one? So many assumptions goes into this, honestly. And also the flood can explain the fact that the winged ones is found on top, because obviously flying creatures is going to have an easier chance of escaping. I know there's some beetles in there. I can see some beetles, not just flying ones, but mostly I can see flying ones. The most ones on the top is flying ones. The flood can explain that, because flying ones can easily, survive longer the waters, and the ones that doesn't fly, which is all below, are gonna get, devastated by the waters first. So the flood can account for that as well. And the other assumptions, like I mentioned, yeah, it's just so many assumptions to try to make this work as proof of evolution.
Yeah, now this comment came in from Mike Jones saying, wait, does the host mean to imply that the evolution model is so reliable that it explains multiple scenarios found in the natural world almost perfectly? Who would have thought? Okay, but let me ask you this. And this is actually exactly what evolution does all the time. Like, any observation that we make, there will be a story created for it. Okay. With no evidence, just basically, these are the just so stories of evolution. Whatever you see, you make up, and they even do it with psychology. The reason humans think this is because of our evolutionary history when we were out running around in the wild and we needed to. Anyway, there's all these evolutionary scenarios made up. But
it's funny because they say this, and it's like the things that goes against evolution, which is, for example, flat layers, no bioturbation. By the way, bioturbation is basically when creature starts to burrow holes inside the layers. If each layer was millions of years, you would have been heavily bioturbated by so many little worm holes, ant little houses, you know what I mean? Like, you'll be full of it. But no, they're all flat, which means catastrophic occurrence, not millions of years of slow and gradual deposition. That's something that goes against the geologic column. So you wanna use this as proof of evolution? This metamorphosis graphic here? Okay, let's talk about the thousands of other things that go against evolution on the geologic column. You know what I mean? Bioturbation, we found no bioturbation. The Grand Canyon, we found no evidence of the uplift of those sediments. The sediments above the Tapir sandstone. The Tapir sandstone, they all flat, no uplift in those sedimentary layers. Just so many things like that they completely ignore. It's crazy.
yes, and
Oh,
I
sorry.
No.
Yeah,
That's
go.
all. It's all good points you're making. But I just want to say to this person that, it's not a scientific model if it fits every observation. Okay. So, meaning no matter what we find, it's going to fit the model. That is not scientific observation. That's meaning that that's not a scientific theory. That has no meaning. So a scientific theory is one that we can actually say, okay, if we see this evidence, then that will be, evidence that the theory is true. If we see this, if we see the opposite of that, then that is going to be evidence against. But if every scenario has its story that fits in with the model, then that is not a scientific testable theory. That is a religious view that's being tried to be explained no matter what the scenario is. So,
exactly.
Okay.
And also just to say real quick, another one would be the trilobites tracks. Basically, we see trilobites tracks going from multiple layers. So no, each layers can't be millions of years if we literally see the same trilobite going through multiple layers, which means, so yeah, we know that what happened was catastrophic deposition, and then trilobites was trying to save themselves by climbing upwards. We can explain that, no problem. Evolution and millions of years by each layer cannot explain that. So there's also that to take into account. But yeah.
Yep. Okay, so Mike says, when I look at the world, I see similarities and differences in nature. It looks like there is some pattern there. When scientists do research, they find pattern. Things look like they change over time. Now, what kind of changes are we talking about, Mike? Because if we're just talking about, like, if we give the definition of evolution, as I've heard it by some people, changes in allele frequencies over time. Okay, I have no argument with that definition of evolution. I don't have an argument against the idea of evolution as small changes in organisms, changes that are capable of occurring because of genes that are already present, meaning genetic variation that's present within organisms, possibilities like genes moving around, like gene flow, genetic drift, even horizontal gene transfer. That is not, I have no problem saying that organisms change over time via those mechanisms. But the definition of evolution that I'm disagreeing with and saying it goes against our scientific observations is the idea that life can diversify into what we see today, large-scale changes such as complete system changes, complete new organs in the diversity of life that we see. No, that does not happen by natural processes. We do not view that happening over time. And so that's the definition of evolution that I'm coming against. So I have no problem with the idea that organisms change in small ways over time.
Exactly, yeah. And also just another real quick one would be basically at the lower levels of the Grand Canyon we found lots and lots of trilobites, and only at the above layers, right at the top of the canyon, we found sponges. Hold on a second, what kind of evolution is that? Because in their view, in their model, sponges came first. The order is all over the place.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing is that the fossil record does not show a clear progression as would be needed for evolution. And there's many sudden bursts of various types of organisms. Tom says most people believed in a God before the constant evolution brainwashing for the last 200 years. It is common sense that life was created. Yes, I totally agree with this, Tom. I really do believe that the rise in atheism is because of brainwashing. And I'm sorry to say it so strongly. I know there's a lot of good people out there who sincerely believe in evolution. I even know a lot of good Christians who believe in evolution, and even good Christians who teach evolution. But the problem is that even if they're, I mean, I love those Christians just as much as any Christian that doesn't believe in evolution, okay? And I hate to say it so strongly, but people have been brainwashed. They have been indoctrinated. And that includes, generations now. So it's no surprise when people believe in evolution even before they study in college, because they've been brainwashed, they've been indoctrinated all those years in their educational environment. So by the time they actually get to studying the deeper scientific topics, they've already become a full believer in evolution. What do you think, Junior?
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, believe it or not, I actually only became a creationist about a year ago. You probably couldn't tell, right? It was only about a year ago that I became a Christian. Before that, I just wasn't really interested much in the whole origins thing. By the way, I didn't even know creation was a thing. Can you believe that? I was so like, out of the world.
Wow.
I didn't even know creation was a thing because you're always hearing evolution, reading on the books since you were young, evolution, on the TV, on films, all evolution. So I just thought to myself, okay, I guess it's kind of the truth, but that was because I wasn't really like too focused on Christianity. I was basically too fixed in the world, things that is not worth it, things that is not. But once I saw what the evidence for creation, I was like, hold on a second. This is it right here. And then I start to go completely against evolution.
Wow. So wait, how did you
know.
stumble upon, so are you saying you stumbled upon evidence for creation before you started believing in God?
Not even that. Believe it or not even that. I don't know. I was just so fixing other things in life that I didn't even know the creation was a thing.
Okay, so you just weren't thinking about God.
No. God. I've always thought about God. I was raised in Christianity. And everything. I read the Bible really young and everything. So I always knew there was something beyond, because once I was very young, I actually saw something beyond. I don't know if this is the channel for that. I don't know if you want to hear that, but I did see something supernatural. Maybe we can leave that for another time. I know this is like a science-based thing, but yeah. So basically, ever since I saw that, and by the way, I saw that supernatural thing with my cousin. We both saw at the same time, and we never forgot.
You should come on my Bread of Life channel and share that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Go on.
And ever since that, I always knew there was something beyond. I always knew there was something beyond after that day, And but yeah, I just thought evolution was true, even though there was there was God and all that. I thought it was true because everyone talked about it. But once I started looking into creation and how it all fits reality, I was like, okay, yeah, I guess evolution really was a brainwash that I went through a brainwashing, just like many young kids. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is happening. And so, yeah, that's why it's important to talk about this. So, so Mike says, Rebekah, all of them, what mechanism starts or ends that? I think he means process. There's no way to differentiate. Well, I think there is a way to differentiate because that would be a really long discussion, wouldn't it? Because we really have to talk about all of the various mechanisms and what they're capable of. So why don't we save that conversation for another time? Vesuvian says a change in allele frequency is not evolution. Well, that's the popular way to get evolution accepted right now, is to say it's a change in allele frequency over time, which nobody really objects to that, but there's a lot in there, right? Like they want to pack into that the changes, those small changes that happen over time, being able to bring about the large scale changes in organisms. So it's a little bit of a tricky definition. So, Junior, thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I just thought it was because you talked about the whole brainwashing thing. I was like, okay, I might as well share this because basically I'm 29. I know you're definitely older than me.
Yeah.
I'm 29, and actually, even your generation already had evolution being talked about everywhere, right? Even your.
Oh yeah, I know. I was brainwashed by 5th grade.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason I know I was brainwashed by 5th grade is because in 5th grade, someone asked me which came first, the chicken or the egg. And I was baffled.
Yeah.
I could not come up with an answer to which came first, the chicken or the egg. And that is a problem for evolution. It's not a problem if you believe God created, right? But if you've already been brainwashed into evolution, then you have to think, wait a minute, how did that form before that? Which one formed first? And so you have to think about how this all could have happened by a step-by-step process when we're talking about reproduction that must happen in the generation of the organism. So I know that when I heard that question in 5th grade, I know that I had already been fully indoctrinated into evolution. So they continued to talk about evolution. Now, I'm not saying our program, like our science curriculum, I wouldn't say that it was like in depth about evolution, but the evolution talk is everywhere. You hear it everywhere. And so, I mean, it's just,
I think it makes sense why the government protects it, because it's very convenient for them. Just believe you came from monkeys. Life has no meaning. Just keep working. Just keep helping the economy. I know I'm just, I don't know, I'm just throwing some stuff out there, but I think it's very convenient for the government to protect evolution. This silly nonsense.
Well, see, and I guess maybe I wouldn't ascribe it to the government. I think it's like just a stronghold that's taken hold in academia. And so that's how it's being pushed. And so that's,
yeah.
So I don't know if I don't think it's a deliberate thing by the government. So, whoops, sorry. Prairie Christian Outreach says macro Evo Devo believers tend to overestimate the effects of their beliefs on other areas of science. Medicine cares little about macro Evo Devo. We make medicine based on current physiology. Yes, and that's the thing, is that for those who say we're denying science, we're not denying science. We're asking you to examine your beliefs. We're asking you to examine what the science actually shows. So I am going based on the science. And so I'm following the science as best I can when it comes to medicine, when it comes to technology and everything. Of course, I'm making use of what are scientific discoveries. And I'm doing the same thing when it comes to evolution. I'm asking people to actually look at the scientific observations. I'm looking at the scientific observations. If the scientific observations were in favor of evolution, like, and I had enough evidence for it, then I would believe it. But right now, I have not seen, and I've been a young earth creationist now for 25 years, and I have not seen the evidence for evolution. So, yeah. And that was a big deal for me. That was, part of my story, Junior, is that when I was, growing up, I came to the point where I said, wait a minute, all this evolution stuff, this does not match up with, what I currently believe about God and the Bible. And I had to get that figured out. I said, look, one of these stories isn't true. Now, I know there's Christians who put the stories together and say they're both true. Fine. That's fine for them. But for me, when I was a teenager and a young adult, that was not, I needed to know the truth about reality. And it seemed to me that the stories didn't go together, right? God
Exactly.
created and evolution, they didn't go together.
Yeah, because it's a theological. I don't know. It's such a mistake because the theistic evolution, like I don't see how you can be a theistic evolution. Choose one, but don't try to be both, because then you create a a problem for scripture, right? Because then death and suffering came into the world before Adam, if things are millions and billions of years old, and that's a problem, right, for scripture. But not only it's a problem for scripture, but the evidence shows that the opposite. The evidence shows that it's young. So why would you ever believe in theistic evolution? Because look, so I did the calculations myself. I took the best mitochondria. This is a science based that you do channel, and I took the best mitochondria studies. I can show to you, Rebekah, later as well. And there's a paper that says that every woman today alive today differs by about 39 pairwise differences. That means each woman ever since Eve contributed to 19 mutations on average. All the women today. So on average, all the women today, you, for example, have an average of 19 mutations in your mitochondria. I also have, but mitochondria also only passes through mother to child, right? So once I pass away, my mitochondria is gonna die. You, if you have a child, I don't know, you're gonna pass your one to them. So yeah, so that's how it works, the mitochondria. So 19 mutations ever since Eve. Okay, average of 19. Now we need to know the mutation rate. I took the best papers talking about the pedigree studies. Pedigree studies, by the way, is the best way to know a mutation rate. Not assuming phylogenetic or assuming no. Because all that is based on radiometric dating, and that's a huge problem. Made a lot of assumption with radiometric dating as well, all based on that. So it's a huge problem, the millions of years or whatever. So let's take the actual observed data, how fast those mutations happen in the mitochondria. I did the calculations and I found out one mutation every 14 generations in the mitochondria. So now we know average of 19 mutations, all the women today. Okay, the mutation rate, 1 every 14. Okay, 19 times 14. And I think the result was 200 something there, 260 or something like that. I don't know. I need to check later.
Generations.
Yeah, generation, exactly.
Yeah.
And once you time that by 25, because I think 25 is a good number, right? A good generation time. I think historically most women had children below 25. What do you think? I think so, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Because that's when women, healthy, the most healthy, can have children, no problem. Historically, marriage was young as well. So I think most had below 25. So yeah, so 260 whatever times 25, and it lands on 6,600 years or something. It's amazing, and that's exactly what you get by scripture. It's exactly what you get by scripture. By the way,
yes, and what you're saying is true, and we don't even have to go based on your calculations, because this has been actually documented in the scientific literature where the mutation rates do not match up with the evolutionary timeline. They match up with a very recent timeline for the last, for the common ancestor, the woman that all of us descended from. So it does match up with the biblical timeline, like you said. And now there is an evolutionary explanation for that. Okay. And I don't know, have you heard about purifying selection?
No, yeah, I've heard of the rescuing devices, like
Yes.
purifying selection and stuff like that. But again, it has been proved that no, this is not gonna erase mutations, because sure, you can select all you want, but we're still counting the lineages that survived. We only counted the ones that survived anyway for the diversity accumulation. So it's like, oh sure, okay, you can say purifying selection, but really, yeah, go
Yeah.
on.
Well, and I just finished reading a paper about this purifying selection, and they did. So basically the concept is, well, okay, that some of the mutations would be taken out, like, meaning there would be mutations, but then like those would get filtered out by natural selection. But also there's all these calculations about the mutation rates, trying to show how the mutation rates, like, if we were evolving for so long, some of the mutations would have actually reverted back through another mutation to their original.
That is so rare that it literally, you lose the moment you use reversal mutations, you lose the argument because it's so rare. Normal mutations, the random ones, happens way more often than reversals. So how can reversals ever catch up in such a way that's gonna make us more similar rather than more different? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, what I got from that paper was, wow, they are trying really hard to come up with a scenario that will excuse the evidence, that so if we just follow where the evidence leads, right, then the evidence leads us to a recent common ancestor. But we have to come up with all of these very fancy calculations and all of these fudge factors to try to make the observations fit with the evolutionary timeline. So
Exactly.
it's just, yeah.
Because they believe in millions of years, not only will they force, by the way, this is something they didn't even predict. The bottleneck, the genetic bottleneck that happened a few thousand years ago, they didn't even predict that. But us that believe in scripture, we already knew that a bottleneck happened, which was the flood. But once they found out that diversity was so similar, that we are all so similar, they're all crap. We need to evoke a bottleneck. That's what so it was not predicted. It's something that it was post hoc. Not only that, they are forced, because they believe in billions of years, they are forced to say that just a single woman survived the bottleneck, which is ridiculous to say that something happened that just a single woman gave birth to everyone. Basically, not gave birth, sorry, survived the bottleneck. A single woman survived the bottleneck. It's ridiculous to say that. However, because you know why? Because if just two women survived the bottleneck, our differences today would already be in the thousands in a mitochondria. Because even if those two women were sisters, doesn't matter, because millions of years passed. That means that those two sisters would already have millions of differences in the mitochondria, which means today we should see millions of difference in our mitochondria. But no, it's only 49, the average difference, which means that, yeah, they forced to say that just a single woman survived. Meanwhile, we that believe that things, humans were created a few thousand years ago, we can even say 20 women survived, no problem. Of course, we're not gonna say that because we believe in scripture. So we're gonna, 4 women survived. That's what scripture tells us. So yeah.
Junior, you've learned a lot in a year and a half.
I know you can. The same thing that happened to you happened to me. Once I was like, wow, okay, there's actually evidence for creating and everything. I was like, okay, this just makes so much sense. The world around me just makes so much sense. Okay, sure, I already kind of believed in God before, but once I saw the evidence, I was like, oh, I need to go deep. I need to go deep into everything. all the evidence.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's put up some comments because I want to address the comments, but I still want to invite people to come on. Oh, good. Otangelo's here. And we still, hey Otangelo, welcome.
Yes, hello.
Good to
Hello,
see you.
Rebecca.
We
Yeah.
still don't have anyone coming on to share evidence for evolution. Why is it so hard to find evidence for evolution or people willing to share what they say is the overwhelming evidence for evolution? If it's so overwhelming, then people should be able to just pop on here and share this, share that, share this, but nobody's coming on. So what is a creationist led to believe? If in the stacks of books that I read about this, in all the papers that I read that are supposed to be for evolution but actually show evidence against evolution, and then I can't even get anyone to come on and share the evidence for evolution, like what's going on? I'm just going to stay on this creationist high until somebody cuts me down. So please come on and share your evidence. Okay, Angela, what would you like to share?
Well, of course, if you're saying evolution, then you need to clarify what you mean by it. There are different meanings. You can mean microevolution, which I would describe better as adaptation, or when we are talking about macroevolution, then that's what actually is in dispute. It is the claim of Darwin that we started with one universal single ancestor, and then this ancestor did give rise to all forms of life through the tree of life. So this is the big question point.
And that's the definition that I am coming against, is the diversification of life from a common ancestor.
Exactly, and there are huge problems with this proposition, and that starts principally and right at the root of the tree. So the diversification from a supposed universal common ancestor to the three domains of life, in special the transition to eukaryotic cells, there is a huge gap which has not been breached. I wrote a book about eukaryogenesis and why the endosymbiosis hypothesis is not a theory. They claim it's a theory, but it's a hypothesis. There are so many reasons to refute this claim.
Yes. Now let's address what Mike says here. He says, if it's not evolution, then are you saying random chance and not actual patterns explain what we see? No, we are saying that an intelligent designer explains what we see. We're saying that life, when you look at it, it's clear that someone had to design it. Why? Life is full of integrated systems, very complex integrated systems. All integrated systems that we know of have been created by a designer. No one would think that an integrated system is going to just appear by natural processes. So we know that integrated systems require foresight, they require planning, there's engineering involved. So, and in addition to that, we have numerous chicken and egg problems. You have to have all of these systems working together at once. You don't have millions of years to evolve a reproductive system. You have to be able to reproduce within your lifetime or the organism dies. So there's many problems with believing that, these things could happen over millions of years process by natural processes.
I was actually 2 days ago in the US, Rebecca. I was in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
Yeah.
Were you there for a conference?
Yes, I was invited to have 2 talks about the Shroud of Turin.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
Oh, that's really cool. Apparently they said something wrong. They lied about it or something, and it was recently been debunked or something like that. Right? I don't know much about it.
Yeah, that was a Brazilian guy. His name is Cicero Moraes. He published a paper in regards of how he believes that the image on the Shroud of Turin was made, and then very recent recently ago it was peer reviewed, and that it was noticed in over 60 newspapers all around the world. But I challenged him on my Facebook Shroud of Turin group, and he was unable to support at all his hypothesis. In the end, he was just name calling me, and then I blocked him. But his hypothesis is not new, and it doesn't bring anything relevant to the table.
Well, let's try to stick on this conversation to the science related to evolution, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I don't believe the Shroud of Turin is Jesus's burial cloth. I'm sorry to disappoint, but anyway, that's kind of a separate matter from this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack your stream, Rebecca. So
No, I want you to share the evidence, against evolution. I just don't want to turn to the Shroud of Turin because I personally don't. I mean, it's kind of unrelated to this channel, and so yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, what evolutionists don't show up, I guess I'm just gonna throw out more evidence for creation just to make them angry and want to join more. But yes, so yeah, basically, again, we only find about 300 supernova remnants, which they called SNRs. You probably looked into this, Rebecca, because I know you've seen some things about cosmology, right? The Big Bang and stuff like that. You've seen some papers about it.
Yeah.
So you probably know. So you're probably already aware that we only have about 300 SNRs observed in the Milky Way, and an SNR is basically the remnant of a supernova. So those really shiny gases that you see, they look really phenomenal. That's a remnant from supernova. We only have about 300, and we know the frequency that they happen. There's papers, I can show you the papers later if you want, that shows that they happen at supernovas in the Milky Way happen at a frequency of about 2 every 100 years. You have 2 happening. That's the frequency that the frequency that they happen at. And when you do the calculations, once again, fits the 6,000 to 7,000 years. It shows so much coincidence that everything just matches with 6,000 to 7,000 years. And what do the evolutionists like to say? The people that believe in billions of years, Big Bang, they just say, "Oh, just give us time that we're gonna find more SNRs, right? We're gonna find more. Just give us time." The thing is, guys, if the Milky Way was billions of years, we shouldn't have to look for it. It should be all in our faces. All the SNR, all the remnants should be all in our faces. It should be everywhere in the sky because billions of years of supernova exploding everywhere. So that argument of give us time, that doesn't work for SNRs. Oh, and the SNRs are type 2. Basically, the bigger the explosion gets, it goes from type 1 to type 2 to type 3. And 99% are type 2, which fits in the younger. Basically, type 3, we only got like 3, and these could be many other things. Why they type 3? It could be that the explosion jet was faster, so you reach type 3 within a younger timeline. So just because it's type 3 does not equal billions of years. And the fact is only 1%, less than 1% of type 3, and 99% type 2 and type 1s, which fits beautifully within the young Earth. So how do they explain that? Well, they don't.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point. And actually, I have heard one young Earth creationist who said he doesn't think that this is a good argument, and he gave some reasons. Like he said, we have found more supernova remnants, but I don't know. I'm not sure which
Oh yeah, it's
side
definitely
to
not.
believe
No,
right
it
now.
is. It still is. It still is. It's very
still a
much
problem.
no. It's very much still is a good argument for young Earth. It
Okay.
still is on our side because I've looked into it. And it's 300 or 310, and many of them they think it's a SNR, but then they found actually it's something else. So there's a lot of disputes. They don't even know what's a SNR. That's the truth of it. But for them to be really confident if it's really a supernova remnant, they need to look for certain parameters. And many of the cases they mistaken themselves with some random X-ray through space, and they think it's a remnant when it's not. So, but actually confirmed, like really high confidence confirmed, it's only 300, and that fits within a young Earth. So this person that said that, well, he's kind of wrong, because according to many creationists who works in the field of astronomy, like Jason Lilo, he's a PhD astrophysics, and he still thinks that, yeah, it's a very much a good argument, because again, only 300 and only type 2s, mostly type 2, 99 type 2. So yeah, it very much is still a good argument for
Oh,
young
good.
Earth.
Well, and I'll have to read more about that, because the last thing I read was the one that it was not a good argument, but I wasn't fully convinced by it, because I had read what you're describing. There's a good paper on that, and so I wasn't sure, but I'll look into that again.
I guess one thing they could say is, hold on a sec. Okay, we've measured that two supernova happens every 100 years, but we only measured that in the last 200 years or so. So how do you know that was constant in the past? I guess they could say that, but to answer that, I could reply, sure, but look how many stars we have in the Milky Way. Are you telling me that there was many 100-year periods when no supernova happened at all? Because that's what they need, right? In order to stretch the time out, they need to say that there was many 100-year periods that no supernova happened at all. But that's unrealistic, because we have billions of stars in the Milky Way. So it's more fair to say that, yes, this rate of 2 supernovas every 100 years has remained constant in the past as well, given the billions of stars that we have.
So are you young Earther or old Earther, Rebecca? I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I'm young Earth. Young Earth. All the way. So this goes in kind of with what we're talking about here. How would you falsify, Flodrius says, how would you falsify a young Earth? To falsify evolution, you just need to find a German Shepherd in the same ancient layer as a dinosaur. Well, let me just say this. I'm not convinced that anything we could find in any layer is going to stop evolution, right? Like, because we've found lots of stuff that doesn't fit in with the evolutionary timeline and evolutionary scenarios, and they just find a new way to explain it. So it's very difficult to actually, imagine a scenario where evolution would be given up, no matter what we find. So, but how would we falsify a young Earth? Do you want to answer that, Otangelo?
I've never thought about that question, because it is very difficult to construct a young Earth worldview in as much as an old Earth worldview, because there are so many different faculties that you need to take into consideration and put on balance to then eventually come to a conclusion. I don't think that you can just take one line of evidence or make one hypothesis and then eventually disprove the entire thing,
Are you young Earth?
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were, but for some reason it sounded like you were talking about old Earth there, like maybe you were more leaning toward that. But okay, I thought you were young Earth.
Rebecca really wants to debate anyone. Just give me someone, even old Earth creation. Just give me someone.
No. No. I don't.
Rebecca wants
like
to fight with me.
No, I don't want to fight with you. No, I don't. Actually, I don't like to fight with any Christian on this topic, because I don't care about what Christians believe on this, actually. Like, if a Christian believes in evolution, go have fun. That's fine. But I'm trying to reach, because my passion is really to help people come to know Jesus. So I'm concerned. The reason I'm doing this is because there's a lot of people out there who have been so deeply indoctrinated into evolution that they can't see God. They can't see the creation. So I'm trying to help those people. Exactly. So, but how would I falsify a young Earth? Okay. So
I got an answer for that, actually. After you, if you want.
You do? Okay, well, I'll just say this. I agree with what Otangelo said, that we would need evidence in a lot of areas. And I'm going to even admit right now that I do see some evidence against young Earth. But as I've studied it, I'm seeing more and more. I do think the evidence weighs more heavily in favor of young Earth right now. But maybe that's because I've been spending so much time reading young Earth stuff. So I'm still willing to weigh the evidence and see where it leads. At what point would I say it falsifies young Earth? I don't know that I can make a hard definition for that right now. But I guess if there was, something that was just, many things, lines of evidence that were coming together that were all pointing against young Earth, it might be enough to dissuade me from it. What would you say?
Well, I mean,
Junior?
I as a Bible believing Christian, I take the Genesis very seriously. First of all, Christ,
Exactly.
he took it as literal. He didn't, and if it would be an older billions of years old, then he would have clearly said it in some way, but he didn't. He spoke about Adam and Eve as literal historical figures through which came the fall, and he is the second Adam which came to restore the situation. So,
Exactly.
how do you fit this story into an older scenario? It makes simply no sense for me. So,
Exactly. And not exactly. Not only that, but that's what the evidence actually leads, because not just mitochondria Eve, but once you do the calculations of Y chromosome, the chromosome Y, which only the men's pass down, you find that yes, it lands within the biblical time as well for men and women. What are the chances of that in evolution? So not only it's our belief, but it's where the actual observable evidence leads us as well. Now, just to answer that real quick, evidence to disprove, young Earth and all that. Okay, just show us something, just one thing that actually proves. Notice my words, proves 100% the millions and billions of years. We just need one. None of them so far. We can talk about speed of light and why that doesn't prove billions of years. We can talk about radioisotopes, like uranium to lead, and why that does not prove billions of years. The RAID team has done work on that, and also this is something that even Sal talked about, because I follow Sal's channel as well. He talked about why we have a mechanism right now that actually responsible for creating all those isotopes that we see today, responsible for creating the radioactive isotopes. Basically has to do with electromagnetism. You can create these elements within the single day, and guess what? It happens by electricity, something that, yes, a catastrophic event would create. So no, we don't need to wait a uranium to decay to lead through billions of years. Now we have a mechanism that was actually done in laboratories, repeatable and observable, that creates lead in the same day. So no, radioisotopic is not 100% proof of billions of years. So speed of light's not. Radioisotopes is not 100% proof of billions of years. Every single thing has fallen. They don't have a single thing anymore that actually 100% proves billions of years. And we just need asking for one, guys. You guys that believe in billions of years, just give us one. We just need one. That would disprove a young Earth.
Well, and I think, though, do we really just need one? Because for a long time, I was convinced that radioisotope dating was good evidence against a young Earth, but it wasn't enough to convince me that young Earth was wrong. And so, and right now, I'm not even sure about all radioisotope dating. I've heard some good arguments against some radioisotope dating, like potassium argon. And there's other types of radioisotope dating that I'm not fully convinced that we have a good explanation for. So, but that still hasn't caused me to not believe in a young Earth. But I will say my methodology is probably different than a lot of creationists, because I am willing to give up young Earth if that is where the scientific evidence truly points. But it would take more than one thing. I don't need just one thing. I need, because one thing could be wrong, right? Like I'd need more evidence.
No, yeah.
And so like, but for me, like, and I don't want anybody to think that this doesn't mean I don't believe Genesis account very strongly and very literally as an account of creation. I very strongly believe it. And I very strongly believe in it as a literal account of God creating. Of course, it doesn't tell all the details, but I think it's a much better, it's a much better creation story when you kind of take it at face value, right?
Exactly.
But so I believe in it very strongly, but at the same time, I also believe that all truth is God's truth. And so, I believe that one thing God has given us is he has given us the ability to observe the world and to make do science and empirical observations and things like that. And so I wouldn't want to reject that source of truth and be determined to stick with only the Bible's revelation as my source of understanding the creation. So I'm just I'm accepting everything that God has given us for figuring out the truth about reality. And so I don't want to say that there's nothing that could convince me away from the Genesis account, if that makes any sense. But
No,
I very strongly believe it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And we all do here, take it very seriously. But once again, it's because all the evidence really points to that being true. Really, it's not because we want to; it's because it really points to the Genesis account being true. And just to clarify real quick as well that you said about the isotopes, is basically when we take a rock, the same rock, and we use different dating methods on it. So potassium to argon or uranium to lead, it gives different dates. That means you can't trust both of them. You don't, because it gives different dates. Every single dating method used on the same rock gives different dates. How is that a reliable source of dating anything? And we took rocks that 10 years old, didn't say anything to the scientists, gave to the different labs, gave them millions of years. It is ridiculous because the ratio, the isotopic ratio inside these rocks is so uneven. The atoms are all distributed unevenly. We can explain that by a catastrophic manner, but the uniformitarians cannot explain that because they all uneven. That's why giving different results. There's some study done on the Proto-21 laboratories. So Cordova, I follow him on his YouTube. He has talked about it as well. He knows about this. If he's watching, he's going to know about it. So it's really incredible that now we have a mechanism that we can do in the laboratories that, we don't need the millions of years anymore, guys, for the isotopes.
So, Rebecca, let me ask you, how many years do you already make these debates? I've done it for decades now already. Have you seen some kind of result? Did you find someone which strongly believed in evolution and then through a good debate or dialogue eventually became convinced of the opposite, that creation is a superior explanation for biodiversity?
Well, I haven't been working diligently on this until this year. So it was a side project, but I wasn't specifically engaging with people on a regular basis on this. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'd say I'm early. It's too early to judge. Have I seen that? But I think I've at least placed a great deal of doubt in some people who very strongly believed in evolution before. So, I'm having opportunities all the time now, even at work. I've talked to people about this, and so anyway, we'll see what I can accomplish. But with God's help, I hope that we can, at least help diminish people's dogmatic adherence to this as, I don't know. But what is your thought?
Well, have you included also the quest of the origin of life, or are you just focusing on evolution? Because, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
look, when I'm talking about evolution, I'm also talking about the origin of life. I know evolutionists are desperate to keep those separate because everybody wants to pass off the hard problems to the other side. So what I mean is, if you talk to the evolutionists, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, but that belongs to the abiogenesis. We don't have to deal with that." And then the abiogenesis people will say, "Well, the simplest life form, the first early life forms probably didn't have that. So we push that off to the evolution people." So for me, it's all of it goes together whether they like it or not. It's all the theory of life coming about and developing by natural processes. And I'm not separating them. Now, for the sake of a conversation, I will separate them because I don't care. Let the evolutionists pass off as many hard problems as they want to abiogenesis, and they'll still have many hard problems to deal with. So I'm fine with separating it for the sake of a conversation if somebody is determined to separate it, but they go together, whether they like it or not.
yeah, in a certain sense, I agree with you because both mechanisms are supposedly being a natural process without the involvement of intelligence. But I also agree that there has to be a separation because evolution starts with self-replication, which you don't have before life starts.
Exactly.
So let's put up this. I wanted to respond to this. So DBK says, "Do you foresee a time when science proves your religion is the one true religion?" No, I don't. And so my reasons for believing the Bible are not scientific. They're based on the something very different. Although there are arguments made about the resurrection of Jesus, and so if in some way we could call that basing it on scientific observations, but other than the resurrection of Jesus, I mean, I would say there's archaeological evidence for the historicity of the Bible, but that the Bible could be completely historically accurate and not be the revelation of God. So I came to believe, I have a video about it if you're interested in coming to knowing how I came to believe the Bible is a revelation of God. And but on this channel I'm trying to keep it with the science. So I don't imagine that science is able to, I don't think any scientific observations are going to prove that the Bible is the revelation of God. So what do you guys think?
Well,
Yeah, sorry.
I think that you are maybe a little bit behind. I think that there is empirical proof or evidence which corroborates the Gospels.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm not denying that there are things that corroborate them as historical documents, right?
I am
But
talking about the resurrection. I'm talking about the miracles that Jesus performed.
okay. Well, again, okay, so what would you say is the scientific observation that confirms a miracle that Jesus performed? And I already mentioned the resurrection might be one that we could say is something scientific in nature, or like that we could, base that on historical records and things like that. But what about the miracles of Jesus? How do you think those are scientifically?
Yeah,
After I
let me
go
be a
the
little bit
Victomation.
bold here, Rebecca. I know that we talked about this already, but I'm studying the linen cloth that covered Jesus in the tomb, which is the Shroud of Turin. For over 3 years, I wrote 2 books on it. So I think that is actually the empirical link which corroborates the miracles in the which Jesus performed, because I believe that the image on the shroud was made miraculously. I would love to talk about this with you in private, since I know that this channel isn't about it.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'd be happy to have a conversation about it. Okay, Junior, go ahead.
Yeah. So So the one I'm gonna mention is related to the catastrophe, the flood. Not but basically, I would try to I would tie together like this in a scientific manner. So we have a study that took 10 years to complete, where they took 100,000. I don't know if you know aware of this study, Rebecca. They took 100,000 species, and they found that the diversity is very low in all the species. Instead of saying species, sorry, let me try to say in a different manner, because it can get the wording can get very confusing. 100,000 types of animals, and each type there's many species. For example, one type of animal, a dog, for example, and so one type, and then many species of dogs. Do you know what I mean? And they looked at 100,000 types. That equates to, I think they said in the paper, like 5 million total, mitochondria. You know what I mean? And they found that the diversity within those types is very low. Very low mutations happens within every single. That's why they conclude in the paper. They conclude saying that all of these animals suffer a bottleneck, just like the mitochondria Eve and Y chromosome Adam. They suffer a bottleneck. But in the paper they say 200,000 years. They say 200,000 years for all the animals. First of all, that already destroys evolution. Even if you say 200,000 years, because evolution theory has nothing to explain how comes basically all animal kingdom suffered a bottleneck 200,000 years ago. But the 200,000 years is wrong. Why is it wrong? Once again, it's based on assumptions, based on calibration from radiocarbon dating, dating the layers. It's all assumption. That's what the 200,000 years comes from. But when you look at the actual empirical pedigrees for many animals that we have done today, like chickens, whales, and penguins, it's the same as the humans in the mitochondria. That means we can safely extrapolate that the mutation rate in the mitochondria is fast for all animals. All animals. We're doing this extrapolation based on evidence, guys. We're not doing based on faith. We're extrapolating that every single animal has fast mutation based on not just humans, but a few animals that we've done already. So yeah, of course we can extrapolate. We're talking about how the genome works anyway. So yeah, we can extrapolate. That's how the mitochondria behaves. And we found when you do that empirically, you find out that all animals, all the 100,000 types of animals, which means 5 million species, all had a bottleneck at the flood time empirically. This is incredible evidence. And then I would explain to the atheist, okay, so we have evidence that a catastrophe happens, all the flood evidence that we have around the world. How do you explain just a few animals of each kind surviving that catastrophe? How do you explain? Do you know what I mean? They can say, "Oh,
yeah,
go."
No, you're actually making a really good point, Junior, because you're thinking in terms that I wasn't thinking when I was answering that question right now. But you're right. There's lots of evidence that there was a worldwide flood. So that's scientific evidence that supports the biblical account. There's lots of evidence, like you said, of a few like that animals all have about the same length of time with mutations and everything that humans have, which is a few, not enough for the evolutionary timeline. So it's good evidence.
And it happened at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly. They conclude in the paper older than 200,000 years. But once you do that empirically, 4,500 years or so, which is the flood time.
Yeah.
So how do
and for those watching who are not familiar with this paper, I think Thaler is the main name on the paper, right? Dr. Thaler. So Thaler is the name on the paper, and this was not a creation scientist who did this. He didn't want this finding. Okay. He actually said he didn't like it. He said he tried to fight against it, but the reality was that the animals that he looked at which I don't remember the number. I think you said 100,000. I'm not sure, but they all somehow, for him in the evolutionary scenario, had a bottleneck at the same time. Okay,
Exactly.
but we could call that Noah's flood, right?
And
So
exactly. And just to
um,
clarify,
yeah.
100,000 doesn't mean 100,000 kinds of animals. That's just the types of animal. Within each type, many species. That's why the total number they actually say is like 5 million species. That's basically all animals of all the animal kingdom. That's why the study took 10 years to complete.
Have I
Yeah.
talked to you, Rebecca, about that structure that has been found on Mount Ararat?
Oh, yes, I know about that. Yes, I mean, I'm familiar with that. I mean, that's, been talked about for a long time in creation circles. So there is a structure on the mountains of Ararat that actually looks like the shape of an ark, and it's very old, and it could be the remains of Noah's Ark, but it's disputed. So
Well, we have to make a distinction. There are actually two sites. One is by Wyatt, which is a rock structure, which is not on Mount Ararat. And there is another structure which actually is close to the top of the mountain, which is broken in two parts. And a friend of mine, his name is Philip Williams, he did visit the site in 2014. There are movies out there, movies which he has done. And this structure is made of wood, and it's below a crevasse or ice. It's buried under ice, and it's very impressive. There is a lot of wood there with pitch, and everything indicates that this is indeed Noah's Ark.
oh wow, I'll have to look into that one, because I think that one sounds different than the one I had heard about. But let's respond to this from DBK. It says, I think abiogenesis and evolution and quantum Darwinism, I don't know what that is, and molecular machine learning systems are all one interconnected topic, but the evidence for it is overwhelmingly strong, in my opinion. Okay.
Literally the opposite.
Yeah. And DBK, the whole purpose of this stream is for people who believe like you to come on and share what the actual evidence. If it's overwhelming, let's see it. So I welcome you on if you want to talk about it. Mike Jones says, newsflash, eggs were around for millions of years before the chickens. It's not a mystery, just a Google. Yeah, and of course, there are other organisms that in the evolutionary timeline, they will say those came before chickens. But the question of the chicken and the egg still stands, because you've got to get the problem of the chicken and the egg is that you have to have the reproductive capacity already in place when you're born in order to reproduce. And not only so the chicken has to already have the capability of making the egg, and it has to have a rooster, okay, that has a different reproductive system that's compatible with the chicken. So you can say, oh, well, before the chicken, and if you look up which came first, the chicken or the egg, it'll say the egg, and it'll say then what came, basically then, what laid that egg, and they'll say it's the proto chicken. So, and then it'll just keep going back and back. So, basically then what laid that, what egg did that chicken come out of? Well, the proto chicken like that egg. So, but the problem remains no matter how much evolutionary explaining you do, because no matter how far back you go in the evolutionary scenario, you've still got to get an egg at the same time that you have the egg layer. So you've got to get them both at the same time. That's the problem.
And if you just study the egg shell, it is so complex and interconnected and irreducible with other systems. I mean, when you start to actually study that, then it is very, very difficult to sustain the claim that eggs could be, or eggshells could be the product of evolution.
You just reminded. I really have to share this real quick. I saw a video, like amazing, where they put like some weight, like a metal ring around the egg, and they just left the tip of the egg exposed to weight, and then they start to put weight on top of the egg, and the egg only broke at 30 kilos. The egg only broke at 30. I was like, what? I can support that much weight?
Very strong. Yeah, it's amazing. DBK says, my statement about abiogenesis and evolution and machine learning, molecular, well, I don't know, MLS, I don't remember what that was in response to your frustration with evolutionists saying abiogenesis isn't evolution, so they can narrow what they are defending. Not me, though. Cool. Okay. So, well,
Yeah.
guys, it's been 2 hours, and I don't think anybody's going to come on and bring us any evidence. So, should we say some closing statements and shut it down?
Has this happened before, where the entire live no evolutionist?
Yeah, maybe they're. I mean, actually, it has. The last time I did this, I think just Sal came on the last time.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to share?
No, yeah, it's been great. Whenever I can, I like to join more, and yeah, great stuff.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, you shared some really great and important evidence. Thank you, Junior.
Thank you. No problem.
Otangelo, what about you?
Yeah, I love this comment. Oh God, another, it's so complex, it's Jesus' incredulity argument. Well, yeah, exactly. I am incredule that unguided naturalistic mechanisms could be a sufficient and plausible explanation for all the amazing phenomena that we see around us, starting with the complexity of the universe, to the complexity of start life, to consciousness, to morality. I mean, so many things that simply naturalism has no plausible explanation. So, yes, absolutely incredible. And I think that Jesus is the answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
they don't understand. They don't understand the God of the gaps fallacy, because we again we based on so much evidence that it no longer becomes a God of the gaps fallacy. It's only God of the gaps fallacy if there's zero evidence backing it up, then you can say God of the gaps or something like that. By the way, we can call them naturalists of the gaps. That's because they don't have the evidence, so they'd be naturalists of the gap.
Now, Flo Dreas gives this recommendation. Rebecca, call up AXP. I don't know who that is. Do you know that?
The atheist experience. I called them so many times, and they are so close-minded.
Okay.
It's a waste
the
of
line
time.
or Gutsick Gibbon to learn about evolution. Erica from Gutsick Gibbon has an open invitation to come on my channel anytime. And in fact, we had one conversation and we were supposed to have another conversation, and I'm the one waiting for her to get back to me. So I'm waiting to have a conversation with her. So I would love to have a conversation with her. And she's a very smart person, and I would love to have a conversation with her. And I'm regularly inviting people to come on the channel that disagree with me and people who have scientific expertise in evolution. And next week, I have an evolutionary biologist coming on. So I'm very excited about that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm eager to hear from anyone. And I, in particular, like hearing from people who have expertise in this field. So, definitely I would love to talk with Erica here. But people like the atheist experience, no, why? I mean, they're theologically biased like I am, right? But in such a way that they're not, I don't think they can be scientific about it. So anyway,
They are actually very open that they are not scientific and they don't understand science. And they say, well, why are you talking to us? Why don't you go to talk to an evolutionary biologist?
right. And then Flodrea says, but obviously take a class at a secular university first. That'd be the best way. Look, I went to secular universities. Well, my Master of Divinity, yes, I got it at a Christian university. But I mean, I went to secular universities for my bachelor's degree, and I read secular books. I read books by evolutionists all the time. So, I don't see how taking a class at a secular university at this point is going to inform me on evolution. But, I'm open to, hearing the evidence in whatever form. So, people are welcome to give me papers, books, and whatever. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching tonight. Appreciate everybody who came on. Thanks for coming on, Wesley, and take care, everyone. And bring your evidence for next time, because I'm going to try to do this on a regular basis. And I'm waiting for those evolutionists to bring their evidence. And so far, we've had very little evidence brought forth. So thanks, everybody, and good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.